Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to JRL Golf Academy. In this episode, I was able to interview longtime coach Gregg McHatton. Gregg McHatton is a legend also in the teaching world. He was actually under the tutelage of Homer Kelly and Ben Doyle, two of the biggest teachers within the golfing machine. So if you're into the golfing machine, if you're into some history about golf, and if you're just a Gregg McHatton nut like I am, tune in. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Okay.
I told you he'd be here, folks.
Wow. That's I don't know how I feel like I'm at least 3 or 4 over.
There's no penalty. There's no late tee time here. We're not too busy.
No? Okay. All right. Good.
All right. Hey, everybody. We've got a real special guest here today. I'm really honored to have not only a mentor, but a friend on here. Mr. Gregg McHatton. We're bringing him out to the public finally. So, Gregg, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
There's you got quite a few fans here that have obviously been influenced by your teachings and things that you've studied and passed on to a lot of the teachers like myself. And we're trying to continue your work. But I'd like to just speak to you about first, like, can we talk about let's get a little timeline of Gregg starting golf, maybe playing junior golf collegiately and then professional, and then let's get into your teaching. So what was the junior golf like? What happened there in your career?
Well, I didn't play a lot, but I was pretty successful in what I played in. I won a bunch of stuff in Southern California, and of course I won the National Junior in 1963.
That's right.
I qualified when I was 13, and I go home and I say, Dad, we qualified for the National Junior. And he says, well, I don't think you have a chance to win. I'm not going to send you. I go, whoa, what? And ironically, I was during the tournament itself. I didn't go. During the tournament itself, I was the only time I've ever been sick where I was actually bedridden. I was laying down in bed for that week almost. And then I didn't qualify for 2 years.
Really?
But then I qualified when I was 16.
Okay.
And I won.
You won?
And then
what year is that? What year would that be? 1963?
1963.
Where'd you play? Where was it?
It's in Florence, South Carolina.
Okay. All right. So you win the U.S. Junior. How old are you? About 16, I think you said then?
16. And then
Okay.
I played the next year, and I played, my quarterfinal round. I got to the quarterfinals, and I was playing well, and the guy I was playing just made everything. And I'm 1 down going into 10 or something, and I knock it 8 feet, and he knocks it over, and he's got no shot whatsoever. And I've got it 8 feet, and he chips it in.
Ah.
And then I miss my putt, and then the next hole I have it 8 feet, and he knocks in a 32-footer, and I ended up losing that match. But my next match was going to be, my next victory was going to be, if I got past him, was going to be Johnny Miller.
Really?
That's the year he won.
Ah. He only won because he didn't have to play against you, right?
Exactly. I would have changed the whole trajectory of his career, I think. Then I went to SC and honorable mention an All-American for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we had a really, really good team in our senior year. I won 2 tournaments. Gary Sanders won 2 tournaments. And we played in 6 tournaments. We played in 22 individual matches and won those. And played in 6 tournaments and won each one of those.
Wow.
Not counting and we had a winner, an individual winner in every one of the tournaments. And then we went to the NC2A, and it was at Broadmoor, and the wind was blowing excessively, and that's the year that Bob Clark won when he shot 300.
Whoa.
And what you'd do is you'd hit a shot and run up to the green as fast as you could, and hopefully mark it before it got blown off.
Oh, my God. And there was no thought of postponing or anything, was there?
No.
You're playing it.
And then professionally, I played in Canada. I played in Europe. I played well in Canada. I went in '72 and I played the four provincial opens west.
Okay.
And I came in 7th and 2nd and 16th, and then didn't do so well in British Columbia.
How many years did you try playing professionally?
That was '72. That was kind of the last year I really tried. That was the last year I only tried the tour school twice.
Okay.
And I got to the national school once and missed it by 3.
Okay.
And missed 3 short putts on the last 9 holes, and had one of my favorite holes of all time is the first round we're playing. It's blowing. Here it is blowing again, and it was
That's
a Silverado.
how you got your impact so good.
Yeah, because I was trying to hit it low. I went in '74. I went to Europe to play.
Oh,
and I missed the British Open by a shot.
I never knew that.
And we played this golf course, Liverpool. There's a public golf course, and I played with these 2 locals. And here I was trying to knock it down as low as I could, and they were just throwing it up in the air. But and they missed by a bunch, and I missed by 1. And that was the year that Alan Tapey. Remember how Alan Tapey finished 11th that year?
Ah, okay. That's pretty cool.
Wasn't that cool? And then I played in Malmo, Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, and Holland. Didn't do so well there, but it's sure fun.
You got to see the world chasing a golf ball around, right?
I know. Yeah.
That's one of the things that, professional golfers, that we are lucky that, if you were able to play this game for a living, it's when you look back on it, the journeys you've gone on are all because of a little white golf ball.
I know. And then when I started teaching, I got to go to Australia and Switzerland and France and Canada, and it's great.
Let me ask you this. In your
Make it easy.
Junior days, who did you work with? Who was did you have an instructor?
Well, no. Yes
No.
and no. So I worked at the shop, and I worked at the club at Candlewood.
Okay.
And so I'd be hitting balls, and I'd hit a good shot, and I'd run in and have the assistant Chuck Seals. Steve Seals, you know Steve Seals?
I don't.
He's a rep in our area, and he's a golf professional. He was a rep, and now he's a golf professional, and he was Chuck's son.
Okay.
And Chuck was I'd run in and say, Chuck, come on and watch this, see what you think. And then we had a guy named Ralph Evans, who was just a spectacular player. He hit this what looked like a scold wedge shot, and you think, well, he missed that shot, and it would just bite like crazy, and it was just a spectacular shot. And he said like 3 things. He was a very shy fella. He said like 3 things to me. 2 things that I remember. I should remember the 3rd, right? He said 2 things that I remember, and he said, Greg, he said, no good players use that grip. This grip is too strong. And
Okay.
the other thing, I was cross-handed. I was putting cross-handed, split-handed.
Okay.
I said, Greg, if that was the way to putt, that's the way they'd be putting. So that's all I got out of him. But he was such a shy fella. Nice
Really?
man, though. Yeah.
Enough though to tell you that, right?
Yes.
So, what about now? So that was your junior time. What about as you were professional, or collegiately and professionally in that time frame? Were you doing it? Were you taking any lessons then, or working with anybody?
No, I didn't really start taking lessons till I was teaching.
Ah.
Well, that's actually not true. I was a real bright fella. I was gonna get some help right before I went to tour school, and
Okay.
so I called Tommy Jacobs. Keith Jacobs and John Jacobs. Keith Jacobs was the superintendent of our golf course, and Keith was Tommy's father and Johnny's father, and I played a bunch of golf with Johnny.
Yeah.
And so I decided, well, I'd call Tommy Jacobs because I thought he was the best player I knew of.
Yeah.
And see if I could get a lesson. He said, no, too busy.
Really?
So that's probably a good thing, actually. Yeah, he was too busy. He was the head professional at La Costa.
Oh, okay.
And so I think he probably was pretty busy.
Yeah, probably, right? That place is happening.
And then I called Johnny Revolta after I was teaching. I called Johnny Revolta because my good friend my good friend Gary Sanders. You remember that name?
I don't know Gary Sanders.
Well, he was Gary Sanders won the junior in 1966,
Okay.
And he was on that good senior team I had at SC, and he and I drove up to the tour school in '72, and he qualified, and he went out and played, and he was leading the Western Open, shot 69 in the Western Open, and he had a biopsy, not a biopsy, but he'd had a problem with cancer.
Okay.
And so they'd taken the thing out, and he came back, and then he took a shower that evening, and he felt it again. So the next day he shoots 80, and he comes home, and we're going to go out to dinner the night before he goes in for surgery, or the 2 nights before he goes into surgery, and he falls over dead that night.
No.
When he's 26 years old.
Wow.
And he was a good player, good friends, and he didn't. I think he was, felt like he didn't have. He was kind of living fine until it just took him.
Just never know, huh?
But when they did an autopsy, he was inundated with it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All the way to the last second, he felt fine, pretty much, probably.
Yeah.
Wow. Could be worse, right? I mean.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna have it, that's the best way to have it, I guess.
Yeah. So now we're sort of at the point where you were saying, like, you're done you're sort of done playing professionally.
Right.
You're starting to teach. You've taken out your first lesson. Now, what were your first influences as a teacher? I mean, did you just come out and go, I'm just going to teach whatever I'm doing, or was it?
Oh, no. I waited for the next edition of Golf Digest. I didn't know what I was going to teach till next month.
Hey, that's honest, right? That's just honest.
Yeah. So I'll come back. You have to come back in September, because I'll have something different. But actually, what happened was in 1979.
Okay.
I saw an article in Golf World about Bobby Clampett and Ben Doyle.
Oh,
so then I quickly went up.
79.
That's how I got up to see Mr. Doyle.
Gotcha. All right. 1979. Is that when it starts now? Sort of.
Yeah, that's when it starts.
Okay.
So I spent 3 years with Mr. Doyle.
Okay.
And then Mr. Doyle said, Greg, he says, you should go see Homer. And so I did.
Okay.
And then I spent a week with Homer. And you know how pushy I can be. And I would call Homer, and I'm not very pushy. So I would call Homer. Right. So I would call Homer and say, Homer, we've got to have a class. And eventually we had a class, and it turned out to be the last class, because he was in Georgia with who's the fella on the East Coast? The hitter fella. But anyway.
Oh, Tom Tomasello. Am I right? Yes.
Tomasello. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So he was in Georgia, and I think Tommy brought him back, and he just had a heart attack on the stage, and nobody in the room knew CPR.
There were a bunch of
so
golf
they were just patting him on his head while he passed away.
Oh my gosh. Well, so now in the timeline now you've already got some education, you'd say, from Mr. Doyle and Mr. Kelly.
Right.
Now, how many years is that now? Like, say, from that time that you'd been with them, how long have you been teaching now to that point?
Oh, I started teaching in '72.
Okay, and that was 70.
I worked for a guy named Bruce Wyatt, and he was so nice. He didn't give me a raise for 12 years, which doesn't sound so good. But what he did do was he let me teach on his time a bit.
Oh.
Although we did teach, we did work like 12 hours, so. On a busy week, I might give 25 lessons or 30 lessons, and the other guys in the shop were pretty upset. But it did work out, and then there was a point where about 80, I became a member of the PGA in '84, maybe in the early 90s or so, I got on the board for the PGA, our local board, and I was the education chairman for a bit.
Okay.
And then I invited Michael Hebron to come to our section.
Okay.
And then at that point that we became good friends.
Okay.
And then that's how I got to speak at the two summits that I spoke at.
Yeah, I gotcha. Hey, you were the PGA Teacher of the Year one year, correct? Or
for our section.
For the section, right?
Right.
How many times?
I was the section Teacher of the Year once, and our Metro chapter at least twice, maybe 3 times.
All right. That's a little bit of credibility behind this guy. So now we know that obviously Mr. Kelly, Mr. Doyle had quite an influence on your teachings.
Yes.
And I remember you telling me a story about, if you recall, you told me a story about why Mr. Kelly liked doing the
swinging.
hitter
Well, he didn't like swinging
more than the swinger. He didn't like swinging. Right.
So
can you tell everybody that story?
Sure. So I went up to Seattle, and about the 3rd day, Mr. Kelly says, I don't like swinging. I go, whoa, wait a minute. I came up here to learn how to swing. Well, he says, that's swinging, that's too easy. He says, I like to go out with 7 balls and come back with 2. He says, but I was the captain of the ship. So that hitting, he says, he likes that hitting because he's in control. And I said, well, I want to do that. Teach me that easy one. He said that easy one made people bored. I said, I don't think people will get bored going to the bank on Monday after winning a golf tournament on Sunday.
And I asked you to tell that story about how, like you said, Mr. Kelly was, hey, man, the swinger's too easy. Because that influenced you. I mean, as long as it's influenced pretty much all your teaching, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, with the golfing machine, there's hitting and swinging, right? In the golfing machine.
Yes.
For people that aren't familiar with that. And Gregg is he teaches the pattern of swinging.
Right. Well, of course, now, Homer would say that there was 512 million possibilities. And Joe Daniels says that's not true. He says there's 84 quadrillion possibilities.
Agree to disagree.
Right. So the book covers everything. That's why it's so different. That's why it's so hard to read.
Yeah. You've been a great help for me with that. What do you feel about the golf machine today? Do you still feel like a lot of the concepts and topics are still very valid, or some
absolutely,
you feel like,
absolutely,
or do you feel possibly some of them you've been like, you know what, I've been able to kind of disprove that maybe?
Well, I don't think I've ever said that, or I'd be happy to say that if I found it. Well, the other thing that's really been influential is that, and because of the golf machine, we after Homer passed, we did a golf machine school in La Quinta, and and Michael Hebron came and brought his son, and Sally Kelly was there. She was Homer's wife, and she made the best chocolate chip cookies of all time. She would bring cookies in every day for when we were there. So the first class that Homer gave was a 9-day class.
What?
A 9-day class, and he would say, well, here's how it went. He said, okay, you read the first page. So they just read the book.
Oh, really?
And then discussed it. Yeah. And then by the time he got to our class, which I think was just the 3rd, I think we were just the 3rd class. He says, all these people are going home and they call me and ask questions I think they should know. So we spent, out of 5 days, we spent 3.5 days in chapter 2.
Wow. Was it that important? Is that why?
Well, that's what he thought. See, all the answers are in chapter 2.
You guys hear that?
All the answers are in chapter 2. Now then, the unfortunate things like some of the people on the East Coast, we won't mention any names, but they say there's a mistake on every page. And I'm thinking, well, if there's only one mistake on every page, there's a lot of good stuff it's still there, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's been condemned. But I think it'll stand the test of time. When he did what he did, when he tried to put everything in there, and nobody has ever tried to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'll make a comeback.
Yeah.
I didn't finish my story. So one of the things that came out of that school in the desert was the Dr. Greenwald was there. Dr. Greenwald went home. He's an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay.
And he went home and he went to a orthopedic convention, and he sees Gideon Ariels there with his computer program for motion software, and they were going to use it. And he said, we could use this for gait. We can do gait analysis. But he really thought was, my gosh, we can do some golf analysis for this. And so he actually funded. You've been to my place, John, and so at Vista, it's like the size of a cafeteria, but half of that Vista dining room is or maybe 3/4 even is the size we had of the biomechanics lab we had.
Yeah.
And we had Gideon's computer program and computer, and that was almost $100,000. That was $50,000. We had $60,000 pressure plates. We had a full-time biomechanist for 2+ almost 3 years. And we went up there. I would go up there every quarter and just do some work and do some study with Ariel's information. And of course, how that work is where Blobman came from.
Well, that's a great segue. There's two things I want to say. Brady said Gregg's Blobman was 25 years ahead of his time. It absolutely is. Gregg has done a phenomenal job. He's taken basically Hogan's swing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
one swing. It's the swing he did on Shell's wonderful golf. And the neat thing about that footage is that was the Biz Hub of 1964. There was 90 frames a second, and there's no footage other than that of Hogan at 90 frames a second that I know of.
Wow. And the other thing is that, and today, like, I can't call myself a young teacher because I'm 40. Okay, I'll call it.
Oh gosh,
right? I can say whatever I want.
Be my guest.
but
whatever you do, don't call yourself old.
That's right, or don't call myself collect either. But Gregg was way ahead of his time when it came to the research. So we now hear more of these researchers today. I think because of obviously social media, and I'll speak of, and they're great. You know what I mean, Gregg? They're all searching, right? It's great.
Absolutely.
Right? In a scientific, that's how we get advanced humans, right?
Sure.
So the Sasha McKenzie's who were kind of in vogue today, Dr. Kwan, Stephen Nesbitt, all these guys, Michael Jacobs, and all these guys are doing great. I love all the research they're doing, but I want to say that this is the OG right here. This is the GOAT that he was way ahead of his time when he was starting all this stuff, and I kind of chuckle knowing Gregg that. What's going on today, Gregg was doing this 25+ years ago, studying with force plates. And I mean, do you kind of see some of that stuff today? You know what they're working on? And you're like, yeah, I was doing that a while ago.
Yeah, right. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What were some of the findings that you found when you were researching them? What kind of studies did you find?
Well, one of the things that was so fascinating is that we had these, like I said, $60,000 individual pressure plates. We had one for both feet. And the way it was at that time, and it's so different versus like the body track unit, the force plate information we got was so much of a personal signature that I could jump on somebody's back and really not change their signature much.
Really?
Yeah. So I haven't really worked with body track. You have, right?
Yeah. We can hang out.
Right. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
And I think the things that we learned the most were the traces. I just became so entranced and intrigued with the traces.
Yeah.
And probably the one that showed us the most interesting one was the hip trace. If they all have the 20 degree to the right line that we have on Blobman that he has.
Yeah.
And Freddie Couples is a check mark, and it doesn't have any circle at all. It's a check mark. And Hogan is like we call it the candy cane, right? And you know what that looks like.
And you're speaking specifically of the right hip joint. If you had a
right hip,
right?
exactly okay. Right.
Just to give some context to what Greg's talking about here.
Right. So Hogan's hip looks like a candy cane.
Yeah.
And Trevino's looks like a candy cane way out to the right. It's not 20 degrees to the right. It's 50 degrees to the right because he's lined up so far left.
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Faldo, the reason, and because he held his knee so much, he had a little tiny candy cane.
Yeah.
It was like 1/4 the size of Hogan's. And
who was that? Who was that last one you said, Greg?
That was Faldo.
Oh, Faldo. Okay.
A guy that's holding his hip and holding his knee, right? And Davis Love had a check mark. Oh, excuse me. Freddie Couples had a check mark, and Davis Love had a curlicue.
Huh.
But they all had the same line to the right.
They all had the same. Okay.
So I think that's the common denominator. I think that's the thing. And then all the good players do it, and so all the good players do it, and I don't think they know that they do it. And then they don't, and most of the people aren't teaching it, and it feels different when you do it, and the average player is not doing it.
So somebody was asking if I can demonstrate it, and I can never demonstrate it as well as Greg. But Greg, I'm going to try to.
Sure.
You can. If you want to like kind of dictate while I'm doing it and telling me if I'm doing it correct or not, let me see.
You got it. I'll give you. I'll tell you what you do, John.
Yes.
Put the club across your hip line. All right, now take your right hip. So the right hip doesn't go straight back. For years and years, I thought it went straight back, but it actually goes straight back for only 1 inch.
Okay, so
I'm going
to switch around so and left looks right.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so now that's good. So the right hip goes straight back for 1 inch, and then it starts going toward the hole. And so one of the things on Blobman is if you just look at the right hip trace, it just looks like it starts and then it goes toward the hole forever. All right, so now once you're there, what you have to do is you have to retract your left hip so that the right hip doesn't go out much. Yeah, there you go. So what happens is, here's an interesting thing, right? So what we think happens is in the backswing, the center of motion is the exact center of your hip, maybe even your spine, right? So it's a pure turn around the center.
So what if I did this, Greg? I'm just making the stuff up on the fly here, but that's what I do. So I've got this like clown's nose. This is going to come into play tomorrow with Scott Calx, guys.
Okay.
So there's the center of the hip you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not going to work.
Because
we need to put it in the middle of your body.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I just had lunch, so there's probably something in the middle of my body, but we're not going to go into that.
So in the backswing, it's a pure turn. If you just turned your club, if you held the club in the middle of the club, let's do it this way. Hold the club in the middle of the club. Face me, John.
Okay.
And just hold the club in the middle. And hold it right in front, and don't put it against your hip. Just hold it out in front of you. Now, if you just turn the club head and just made a pure turn from there. Okay. No, not you. Good. Just the club. Just the club. No, just the club. Just twist the club. Like you're gonna. No. You can see me, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll show you. Wait a second, I'll get a club.
See, that's what I was really trying to do, guys. I was trying to get Greg to do it.
Okay, I'm back. You got me?
We're here. We're not going. We're listening.
All right. So to begin with, it's a pure turn.
Oh yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Right?
Yep.
And then if we pure turn from here, if we kept the center of gravity here, my right hip's going out like crazy.
Yeah.
So here's what we think happens. It's a pure turn. Then the center of gravity goes back to the right hip. And then the left hip gets to come in without the right hip going out.
Yeah.
And at that point, the left hip's the center of gravity, center of motion, center of rotation, and then the right hip flies out to the right.
Yep.
Now all the sensor people, the single sensor people, like K-Vest and 4D Motion, they have one sensor on the hips, and they're telling us they can tell us what the hips do. And I talked to the lady, one of the CEOs, and they said, "Well, it's a fixed bone. But the center of gravity, the center of rotation moves, so that doesn't. That's why they come up with a pure turn on their looks."
I gotcha. I think that was, what was interesting about that, Greg, is that, I shared those gears captures with you about the hip and stuff like that with last time I saw you. And when I saw that, I thought of you instantly, and I'm like, you had this years ago already. And, with fast forwarding to today with gears, as detailed as it is and stuff like that, it is kind of cool to see that it hasn't changed. So
that's right.
It really cool. Hasn't. And and I'm not saying that there's not other patterns that people can do, right? But
of course. That's only one pattern. That's what happens to be what I think to be a pretty successful pattern.
Yeah. So that
I just saw somebody the other day that said that Nicholas, he looked at Hogan and looked at Nicholas, and he said, "Well, I think that Hogan is like, the reason he's so good is we need to get, so we use these modeling of all the good players today, and I don't think they quite have it, and I think we need to get Mr. Hogan back to make one sing, so we have the real essence of what I think is the best geometry and the best physics ever." And this guy saying, "Well, I don't think Hogan had the great physics. Maybe Jack did."
Right.
So, Jack's still here, but
you feel like Hogan, Mr. Hogan was obviously the gold standard in terms of how he was. Yeah.
I mean, they said he had 139 mile an hour club head speed.
Jeez, my car doesn't even go that fast.
I know, right?
Let's take a couple questions here, Greg.
Okay, sure. Make them easy now.
Oh yeah. Brady Riggs had a couple. How did Greg figure out how he could throw people around to change feel? It changed
that's
the way
a great question.
I organized my own swing.
I just watched Mr. Doyle. And then for some reason I came home, I could just do it. It was really weird. And I thought, well, that's pretty easy. So when I went to Holland, I got to go to Holland, which was great. I'm going to turn this light off. It's too bright. Does that help or hurt?
That's good there. You still look beautiful. All right.
So when I went to Holland, we had a 5-day school and 5 golf professionals. I said, okay, well, this one morning we'll just work on moving people. And that took a day and a half. Because they were throwing people all over the place.
Huh.
But I think
you are the master of that. I mean, I've gone up there numerous times to see, and I'm like, just like, hey, move me, because I want to learn how to move, to get people to feel. But that's a fine art that, honestly, I don't think in teaching, I think that's overlooked, and it's not very understood either, of how to move people into those different sensations and motions, to keep it dynamic. I think is very.
I think maybe one of my benefits have been, since having watched the traces and having a good idea where I want pieces to go, I have that advantage.
Yeah.
The other thing that's kind of interesting is if you if you move a man, they're going, okay, what are you doing back there? And then if you do a woman, they're just going, well, you know, if it's for the good of my golf, you can do whatever you want.
But always ask if you can put your hands on the lady's
Yeah,
hips
right.
before you ever do
Right.
it.
Right.
Full disclosure.
Right.
Brady also had a great question here. How do you blend the data into teaching someone to play on a high level?
Well, I think the data. I think the data is useful to get us if it doesn't get us to flow, then it doesn't help us.
There you go. That's pretty good.
So that's kind of, I think that's my basic message is what can I do to get this thing to flow?
Yeah. Andreas Callie, all the way from Denmark, had asked, how much does the center of the pelvis move toward the target, and when does it stabilize on the downswing?
Ooh, I don't know the center, but the left hip goes back 4 inches and comes through 7.
Okay.
And when it's at its 7th point, which is just about starting, when the club starts to fly out beyond the handle
On the downswing?
on the downswing, that's when the left hip is starting to come back away from the target.
So around shaft parallel on the downswing, you'd say?
No. Well, the start down. Well, it's closer to start down than it is release.
Oh, okay. So just before, just after the top.
Right.
Okay. That's when you feel like it stabilizes.
Oh, right. And so I think, that's one of the things about the kinetic chain. The kinetic chain guys are saying, well, stop the hips, stop the shoulders, stop your arms, stop your hands, let the club go.
Yeah.
I think the reason it looks like the hip stops because we know they slow down, right?
Yeah.
Because the mass goes out. But also, it slows down because the hips are going backwards.
Okay.
So they're still accelerating. They're accelerating, but accelerating backwards. So that's why it looks like they're stopped. So I think that stopping idea is probably not the best.
They're still moving, but they're just changing directions where they're moving. You're saying?
Yeah. Where do you take your glove hand when you're trying to throw to the plate?
That's a great one. I think everybody should. This was a big one for me. Learning from Gregg. I'll look lefty here, but when I go throw.
Yeah, so you pull that front arm in behind you and you bend it, and so you can keep going. Right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, the other thing that's so interesting is that when we were kids, the first thing to throw a ball, the first thing we did is we lifted our leg and bent our leg.
Okay.
How brilliant is that? Because that sets up the mass of the system close to the center so we can rotate. And if you ask somebody to bend your knee or move your hip back, you're trying to hold them still, right? So it just stops the whole system to start with. Right. But as a 5-year-old, we did it instantly.
Didn't think about it. Not at all.
No, just physics told us.
Right.
Then we got smart and couldn't figure it out.
Then we got all muddied, right?
Right.
John Ortega asked, give us a little pulling versus pushing dissertation.
Oh, well. So if you have 3 clubs on the ground and they look like a three out of line clubs. So you have 1 club on the ground that's, let's put them on a clock, all right? So how can you explain it? Let's just say they're 3 out of line clubs going in very different directions. So you have 3 out of line clubs and in very different directions, and you attach each of them. Well, okay, all right. So let's so take the grip, the club on my right, which is the one your shadow is on at the moment.
This one.
Yes, and now take it to the one that's to my left that you're pointing toward, and put the grip on the club head and point it towards yourself.
Put the grip on the club head and point it towards myself. Okay, like that.
Well, no, now point yourself. Put it along the line of the grass mat you have there, or the line of the grass, along the cement. Right where you had it, but just have it along the. All right.
Hang on. Something like that?
No, you had. Wait, no. All right. So how do we explain this?
In English.
In English, right? English is.
You got a piece of paper? Draw it, and I'll put it up.
Oh, sure. Okay. Got it.
This stuff is live, folks. This is not scripted. Thank you. You want it like at letter L?
It's like this. So you had them like that, right?
Hang on, because it's flipped around. So.
Well, it doesn't matter. It just so they're all going in like 90 degrees to each other in different directions, right?
Oh, okay, gotcha. Hang on. Is that cool, Greg?
Yeah, that's great. So if you attach them all with a string, you know, and then you have a string at the top end on the grip closest to you.
Yeah.
And then you start pulling them, what happens to them?
So if I start pulling this one, they
just walk in that direction. Up. They all line up.
Yeah.
So that's the point of swinging. When the swinging gets all the forces to get on plane and get online and on plane, in line and on plane to the center rotation.
So there's a tension across the shaft then?
It pulls them all in line, right?
The tension does, right?
Right.
That's created from the center?
Right. Now, if you did the same thing and pushed them, what would happen to them? They would just go. They would go everywhere.
Do you pull a chain or push a chain, right, people?
Exactly.
Yeah. You pull or push a chain. That should give you an idea there, guys. That's pretty good, Greg. Hey, thanks for that one. That was from John Ortega, our good friend.
Oh, my best to John.
He's doing well. He's doing well. So that was great there, Greg. That's just they're showing a true master of his craft, being able to describe things to me, especially. So, hey, Greg, what are some of your tried and true over the years that you found, maybe a drill or two, or even the concepts that you kind of stick by in your teachings today?
Well, okay, here's a good one. That had a kind of a evolutionary line of understanding to it. The first time I gave a lesson to a fella, gosh, this was 30 years ago now. I said, so he tops the first shot he hits with a 9-iron. And I said, well, I got a question for you. What are you supposed to do to get a ball in the air? He says, I'm paying you all this money for a lesson, and I got to tell you how to get a ball in the air? He says, you put it on a tee. That's what you do, so you can get under it. Right? So then at that point, I'm thinking, wow, boy, the thing we have to do is we got to teach people to swing down, hit down, and go down. So for years and years and years, that was my main thrust. And then I realized, I was forcing people too hard to do that. And then if your wrists are soft enough and you're doing your work, it's impossible for the club to miss the ground. Because the only way you can miss the ground is overpower it and override that throw out.
Yeah.
That's when we have a nice piece of soft ground and I let it go, and so I stick the toe into the ground and where the ball would be.
Yeah.
And if it's soft enough, people can't pull it out.
Yeah.
Which is very cool because and you do it in such a way it looks pretty smooth, and it gets so stuck and it's going out so hard. It's amazing how hard it's going out, and they can't get it out. And so now I realize we got to touch the ground, but it's got to be from the work and it's got to be from the softness. So the drill, of course, I use is I always start people on short shots. I figure if you can't do it small, if you can't do it slow, you can't do it at all. And you know, it's not. I guess Kobe now. So I was going to say that you can't play the piano. You can't play the scales on the piano slowly, or you can't play them fast until you can play them slowly.
Yeah.
But now Kobe learned how to play the Moonlight Sonata in a week.
Well, there's always an outlier, and we fall in love with those people.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Don't fall in love with outliers.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that. I'll give you credit though.
All right, man. Finally, I could actually help you with something once in my life. It happened
Right.
today. Market people. CSW Golf said, okay, so synopsis of what we can learn from the golf machine book, Homer and Ben.
Oh, oh, well, if you want to learn how to swing, you get in there and learn how to hit or swing. And by the way, that's kind of what I've been doing. I just started a process. I'm trying to take all the swinging parts out of the book and put them in one place.
Oh, how cool is that, guys?
That'll be fun. And then if you want to learn how to hit, go in and look for the hitting elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you watch Ben teach, it didn't. He used the words, but his artistry was such that it didn't look like the book, right? Because the book looks so regimented, and he was so Homer. Ben was the artist and Homer was the scientist. But although Ben was very bright, but you saw his mat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think everybody? How many people that were watching us have seen the mat? You know, have any idea?
I'd say, you know what, with this group here, I'd say a decent amount have seen the map.
Well, one of the fun things he said to me, he said, Greg, he said, I put the book on one page. And what I did is I took his mat, and I took every saying and every picture and put it in a PDF, 92 pages long.
Wow.
And that's sometimes with three pieces, several things on a page. It's amazing. It's unbelievable what he did there.
Wow.
If anybody wants a PDF, they can ask. I'll send it to you.
Give some
I'll send
info.
it to you.
Well, give some info, Greg, where you can be reached right now. I mean, I want you to, you never do it, but I want to help promote you. How can people reach you right now? Like email?
The best email now, I have a new email. I've been the hat at thevine.com for a long time, but the best one right now is _hat at iCloud.com.
Okay. All right. And Greg's been teaching Vista Valencia up in the city of Valencia here in Southern California. You guys can reach him over there.
Well, when we're open.
Yeah, when we're open, or else
when we're open.
Yeah. If we're going any longer with that, I hope that you'd be a guest again on the show again here. But people love hearing from you, Greg. Here's from Oscar. Oscar's Sachs. You know Oscar. Hey, Greg, can you share how you use your beanbag products? I think you're great with those.
The
impact bags.
The heavy balls?
Yeah,
the impact bag.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so one of the things the impact bag we use, one of the things that happens is people either don't sustain it, they bounce off, they stop when they hit it, and what I want to see them do is put it against it and keep going, like we're trying to push the cart.
So keep talking there, Greg. I'm going to go give them a little description of it here in a second.
Okay, and then one of the things that happens is if people are using their hands when they get to the impact bag, their hands go way forward, and what we need to do is it shouldn't go quite as far forward because we're not hitting it with a club head, we're hitting it with the whole shaft, and the way you can support the shaft is to use your body in such a way that your trunk is going against your arm in such a way that it's pulling the club and not just the handle.
Right. So one of the ways that Greg had taught me to use the bag as well is that if you were to put the bag, this is the bag. I am obviously not an artist either, but if you were to hit if you're going to hit the bag, you want to be able to hit the bag into, usually we'll put like an alignment rod or a broken shaft in the ground and lean the bag against it. And you'd want to be able to hit the bag and hold it against the broken shaft. What you don't want to do is hit and then after impact and get the bag to roll to the right or to the left of the stick. Correct, Greg?
Right. So I put the bag against the wheel of a cart.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get to go anywhere.
And then maybe.
But what happens if they hit a glancing below it, the club just glances off.
Right.
To keep it against the bag, they have to, like you say, you've got to hit the center of the bag.
Yeah. And the other thing that we also pay attention to a lot also is, Greg, that we don't like to have it double dribble, right?
But you don't want the bounce?
Yeah, we don't want the bounce.
No, that's correct.
So what Greg has taught me over the years is when you do hit the bag, it's kind of hard to do here, but if I did hit the bag, you don't want this to happen. You want to be able to hit the bag and have your body kind of absorb the shock. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're still working.
You're still working. That's right.
Still working.
That's right. Let's see what else. So I hope that answered your question there, Oscar. Brady says he has the mat.
Very cool.
Yeah. Alan Ochia says he's seen it. Mr. Golfing, yes, still hanging on my range. That's pretty cool, Mr. Golfing.
Still hanging on the range. Very cool.
Very cool there. All right. Andreas Cali, can you list the name of top 100 teachers that have come to learn from you? I'd love to hear that.
Oh, well, Michael Hebron, Tom Patry. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. John Ray Leary, you're on that list, aren't you? Brady
I
Riggs.
am on that list. Brady's on that list.
Brady Riggs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are the only guys I know.
Can I help answer that for you a little, Greg?
Sure.
It's not that if you, like, I think the greatness of a lot of teachers I've worked with, it's not necessarily if you work directly with them. I think it's better if you can, because you want to hear it from the horse's mouth. But how has the teacher that, we see in high regard, what kind of imprint is he leaving amongst other teachers? Because the other teachers like myself are the ones spreading the word. And I think that with Greg, I mean, there's people from around the world that have logged in today. They've messaged me. I've gotten so many messages when I would put you up that you're going to be coming on. That's an effect around the world. So, you might not be able to name them each person, Greg, but I know that you've affected people around the world. And there's very few teachers that can make that claim. And I'm going to make the claim for you. But I want you to know.
Thank you very much.
Beat down from here. Yeah. You've affected a lot of teachers and how we conduct our lessons are things on the daily. I always think about, like, what would Greg say about this, I think you can't measure that in a list. Okay. So, that's my take on it.
No, that's very nice. Thank you, John.
No worries, my man. Let's see here. John Ortega says, it never rains on the range with Greg. How do you make that
It never rains on the range.
72 degrees.
I don't think there's any coronavirus on the range either. I think that's probably the safest place to be.
You got to know Greg to understand that one. Let me expand on that a little bit. So Greg and I, we used to teach at the same place at Angeles National Golf Club, where my JRL Golf Academy is at. Greg would be out there. It's 115 degrees, and I was first started teaching when I started going out there. I was just new, and I saw Greg out there every single day. It did not matter. And then in the wintertime, it could be 40 degrees, and there's a little bit of hail and rain, and Greg's still out there. And Greg now has gone on, and he's left where he and I were teaching, and he went back up to Valencia. And I call him up one day, and it's raining cats and dogs, right? And I call it Greg, and I'm figuring, hey man, good time to hang out with Greg. And I go, hey, how's the weather up there? And he's like, 72 and sunny. It just doesn't matter. He's good at teaching it. Yeah. So, and to, again, to my point that I was trying to make earlier about how you affect teachers, I think I have some of that in me as well, because of what I saw with you. That was my formative stages as a coach. You know, it's like I was developing as a coach, and I just thought, well, that's normal. Just teaching 120-degree heat. What's the big deal? So, thank you for that. What swing direction would that? Oh, hang on. CSW golf. Well, the one, if the bag, CSW, if the bag is rolling to the right of the stick, you've got an in-to-out path, which is okay. Would you say, Greg, to like train somebody that's massively over the top? He's talking about impact bag, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So just to change the swing direction.
Right.
Let's see. BB Golf Show asks, if you're doing the correct thing to an impact bag, how do you get it to transfer to a golf club? To a ball, I mean, he said. What's your take on that, Greg?
Well, I think that's actually the one of the reasons we do what we do. If as you keep the pressure against the bag, you're essentially following through without moving. And the people that just hit the bag, it doesn't transfer at all. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. You'll feel quite a bit of torque in your body when you're.
You've been the heck out of the shaft.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll do it.
When I do it, and when I'm demonstrating, I'm saying I can't talk. I say, "Can you see how much the shaft is bending?" You know, and they say, "Yeah, it's bending pretty good." And of course, they're not bending at all.
Right.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Let's see here. Let's see here. I had some video of here of Randy Garrett's balls. Let's see. Ben Doyle said you can have too much lag. Well, you can have too much, or that's right. Ben Doyle once said you can have too much lag. Well, can you have too much love? What do you think of that, given what you know now? Great question.
Well, all right. So I think he would say, I think he said you can't have too much lag, and you can't have too much love. But I think you can't have too much lag if it's soft. If you're holding it, it's too much. It's fake lag. So if you're holding it, you have to time how to get rid of it. That's not the essence of it. It's the inertia of the club against your finger, not holding it, not restricting the club from flying out. When the club wants to go, it goes.
Right. You
just move in such a way that it doesn't. You can avoid the outward force by moving in a straight line. So that's where if you're going around in a circle, all the forces fly out. If you move in a straight line, there's nothing that wants to fly out. That's why it's so important to have a slide in your downswing.
So you want me to do the about the rotational and then
sure
spinning around in a circle here for a second?
Sure. All right, so you see that?
A little dark, angle it. Oh, there you go. A little dark.
So if I go sideways and then fly out at all, when I go this way, it flies out. I'll hit my computers.
Yeah. So do that again, Greg. And Greg, do that again one more time, and I'm going to go spin around so they can see the difference at the same time.
Okay. John spins around, and it flies out. And if I go sideways, it doesn't want to fly out at all. There you go. There you go.
I think that was hope that answered that question, because that answered my question a long time ago when you showed that to me.
And let me just say one more thing about my little shot. I realized just about 3 years ago, that shows you how fast I learned, that I was probably cheating a bit with a little shot. So Mr. Doyle would say that you want to get the wallop, give it the wallop, and so I would cheat a little bit, and I would throw it. It's between you and I now. I would throw it from my wrist to get the wallop.
Let me see.
Pretty good at a little shot, and I don't think I did it quite as much on a full shot. But now I realize I throw it out completely from my center. So it's much truer than it used to be.
So it comes more out of your center from your rotation. You felt
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's awesome, Greg. Hey, Greg, did you have a good time on this?
Sure.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you on again in the future if you'd agree to it.
Anytime, John, and do it anytime.
I appreciate that, Greg. Hey, everybody that tuned in today, like I said, all our information that you have found today, hopefully you found it useful. I'm sure, I know I did personally. Greg, could you please talk about, let people know again where you're at? Just give yourself, let people know where we can find you.
Well, when I'm teaching, I'm at Vista Valencia Country Golf Course in Valencia, California. And you can reach me at 661-755-8495. And you can, my email is the_hat@icloud.com. And you also can look at golfresearch.net, www.golfresearch.net.
It's a wealth of information, everybody. And again, some of the topics that we went over here, I started up a YouTube channel. It's JRL Golf Academy. We're going to be putting his stuff on. So if we missed anything, or if you missed anything that you want to kind of go back over what we went, go ahead and go to JRL Golf Academy on YouTube. Everything's there. I can't thank you enough, Greg. I can't wait to see you again. Please be safe, Greg. With everything that's going on around here and everybody else here as well, please.
Everybody stay safe.
You got it. Thanks.
This is great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, everybody, the JRL Golf Academy. Please make sure to link and comment down below. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that little bell for notifications. And we look forward to seeing you on the next JRL Golf Academy.